Hello and welcome to this, our final Easter devotion, at least for this year, as we come to consider the seventh and final saying of Jesus on the cross. Father, into your hands I commit my spirit. Some people believe that these words were maybe part of an ancient Jewish prayer often prayed at the end of the day at night before sleep. Those of you who grew up in the Church of Ireland or are familiar maybe with Anglican liturgy might know about the nighttime prayer compline, where the opening line is, "The Lord Almighty grant us a quiet night and a perfect end." Or maybe you're familiar with the child's bedtime prayer, "Now I lay me down to sleep. I pray the Lord my soul to keep." In many ways, the final prayer that Jesus utters on the cross has a very similar theme and purpose to it as these prayers have, just as we commit ourselves to the Lord's keeping at the end of the day. So Jesus commits himself to his Father's tender keeping at the end of his life. As he is about to enter the dark valley of the shadow of death, he grasps the hand of the one who will walk through it with him. And did you notice who the prayer is directed to? Jesus prays again to his Father. You'll remember that the first prayer he prayed was for his Father to forgive those who were crucifying him. But as time goes on, the language of his prayers change until he reaches that moment of darkness when he cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" That tender calling of Father is replaced by the much more general call of my God. But now, as he is about to take his final breath, the term of intimacy is restored. It is to his Father, who he is going to commit his spirit. As one writer puts it, Jesus' use of Father is proof of the full, conscious and intimate fellowship with his Father has been restored after the agonizing suspension during those 3 hours of darkness. This prayer that Jesus prayed on the cross became a source of comfort and perhaps even inspiration for the early church. It's the same prayer that Stephen prays in Acts 7 as he's been stoned, as he's dying as the first Christian martyr. He too cries out and commits his spirit to the Lord. Peter, who was writing to suffering and struggling Christians all over the world, borrows this idea of entrusting ourselves to God's care as he writes. So then, those who suffer according to God's will should commit themselves to their faithful Creator and continue to do good. This idea of committing ourselves to God was something at the heart of the teaching of the early church. In this prayer, Jesus models for us a calm and confident contentment in God in the midst of trials and struggles. In fact, he models it in the midst of the deepest, darkest struggle that anyone has ever had to endure. This prayer that Jesus prayed is one that we can daily pray, and I believe one that we need to learn to pray. And I believe that as we do learn to pray it, we will be freed from many of the weights and worries of life. Solomon, writing hundreds of years before the cross, told God's people to trust in the Lord with all their heart, to lean not on their own understanding, but in all their ways to submit to him, and he will make their path straight. Often life does seem strange and confusing. Things don't work out the way we thought they would. Plans go awry. We may well even question, why is this happening? But the scriptures assure us that we can trust the Lord. We might not understand his ways, but we can always trust them. The cross reminds us that when all seems lost, it might just be being won. Martin Luther once said that he held many things in his hands and he lost them all. But whatever he placed in God's hands, that he still possessed. Whatever we place in God's hand, we still possess. But when we try to hold on to things in our own hands, we lose them all. This may be one of the most important lessons and prayers we learn. One of the most important attitudes that we learn to adopt, to commit our ways to the Lord, to trust in his sovereign care. It's about letting go of what we're trying to hold on to, placing our lives fully in his hands, fully surrendered, fully given over to him. I wonder if you're clinging to something today. If there's something you need to hand over to the Lord, maybe it's a person or maybe it's a situation, don't be afraid to commit your way to the Lord, to trust in him to direct your paths. Remember Peter's words to those struggling Christians. Commit yourselves to your Creator. Continue to do good. That's our calling as followers of Jesus in this world. And we can be confident because, as Paul reminded Timothy, I know the one in whom I trust, and I am sure that he is able to guard what I have entrusted to him until the day of his return.